Good morning. Today is September the 12th, 2020. It's time for Stories with Stuart. And today I want to talk about the things that hinder our personal growth. Now, last week I gave some illustrations, some little stories, and they weren't necessarily recommendations. Matter of fact, they were not recommendations. They were just illustrations of how getting into a personal growth plan will cause some discomfort. It'll cause us to change the way we think, the way we do, the way we believe. And sometimes that's a challenge for us to get out of our comfort zone. It's always a challenge for me. And so today I want to talk about some of those things that really challenge us. And one thing is our habits. We have developed ways that we do things, possibly because it's the way it's worked for us, possibly because that's how we were taught to do it. So for a little experiment, hold your hands out, clasp your hands, very simple. And now, hold your hands out, move over one finger, and clasp your hands. Boy, that doesn't feel right. That feels really wrong. And so that's what happens when we begin to change our habits. We decide, okay, this is what I'm going to try. I'm going to see if I can get a different result. I'm going to put forth a different effort. But when we go to put forth the effort, boom, it's right back to what we've always done. And so we have to be very intentional about growing ourselves, growing our minds, changing our habits, changing our thoughts, the way we think about things. And that's a process. And so many people give up too soon. And they say, oh, I just can't do it. That's no good. It's not going to work for me. He's just more self-disciplined. She's just always been that way. And so they quickly give up and don't realize that there's a process there of learning to change our habits. Another thing that hinders us is a lack of awareness. So to illustrate that, this week I bought some blinds for my windows because I put up new window trim, and I had been using just a piece of house wrap nailed up around the windows when the sun was glaring in here, and I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to nail into my pretty window trim. And so supposing I was someone whose mother always sewed their own curtains, whose wife always sewed their own curtains. And so that's my belief system. That's all I'm aware of. So I go to the store and I say, could I have some material? Well, what are you going to use it for? Oh, I want to cover my window. Cover your window. So you're doing a craft project? I'd say, a craft project? What are you talking about? Well, people cover these old windows with material to do craft projects. And I'm like, no, I want to keep out the sunlight. And they say, well, why don't you go get a blind or a drape or a shade? And I'm not aware of those things. So then I'm faced with two choices. I can either say, you are so dumb. I come in here for something simple and you don't even help me with what I want. I go out muttering, wow, and people are so incapable. They can't even get me a piece of material to make a curtain for my window. Or I can say, oh, I wasn't aware of that. My mom and my wife have always taken care of that. So teach me a little bit. What would you recommend? And where can I find these things, these blinds or these drapes or these curtains that you're talking about? And so they say, well, why don't you go to such and such a store, ask such and such a person, and they will guide you through the process. So I go to the store, I reveal my ignorance, and I say, I've never done this before, but I'm trying to keep the sunlight out. And they say, are you trying to keep all the sunlight or just a portion of it? And so we work our way through all the possibilities, and I become so much more aware. And at the end of the day, I'm like, wow, I learned something today. This is awesome. It's not like I was stupid. It's just that I wasn't aware. And so I had a victory that day because I gained some awareness. And so that's a big step in personal growth, is gaining awareness. And we begin to understand more possibilities. And we begin to have more choices. and we begin to see what causes the effects that we're getting. And we can change some of those causes. Now, the other things that hinder us are if we are taught what to think instead of how to think. So when you're taught what to think, and then a new thought comes to you, it has to fit into the paradigms of how you believe. Because if it doesn't fit into those paradigms, our mind just kicks it out. It causes a very uncomfortable feeling. No, that can't be right, because that's not how I was taught. And so what I have discovered is that the lower your level of awareness, typically the more opinionated you are that what you know is right, because you don't know anything else. So it has to be right. And as you begin to enter into a personal growth and you begin to become more aware of more possibilities, you start to realize, wow, there's so many things I don't know. And it does a couple of things. It creates a hunger that we can learn to know more things. It also gives us a much better understanding of why people are doing and saying and acting the way they are. A lot of times it's simply because they don't know. They don't have that level of awareness that says, I have an option here. I don't have to do it this way. I can do it this way. I'll get a much better result. And so then sometimes to get to that, we need some outside influence. They always say readers are leaders. Well, that's true for the most part, unless you have been taught what to think instead of how to think. And in that case, you're going to need someone to begin to question you. Okay, but why do you believe this? Do you believe that there's a better way to do this? Do you believe that your life can be improved? And what can we do to help you improve your life? And so you begin to dig for those answers from within, and you begin to work the old mind, and you start to say, yes, I believe that my life could be better. It's not as good as it could be. I don't know how to get there. I don't know of all the possibilities. And so it takes a combination of teaching, which is getting other information from another source, either from a book or a podcast or a video or a person or a personal coach, and then mentoring, where somebody tells me their experiences as they've learned to grow their life and to have more success in more areas. And then the final step is coaching, when somebody takes you from your low level of functioning to your highest level of potential. And most people are not living within their highest level of potential. But I think that I'm going to stir up a little bit in you that you will want to. Have a good weekend.